What are some luxury items which you never knew existed, which only the mega rich can afford, that blows your mind and you wouldn't mind having, or is just an example of how people have too much money and not enough sense? I know a couple who live in New York City who have a live-in nanny for their 2 dogs. They hire a different veterinary student every few years. The student gets their own suite, a town car, a generous salary in the high 5 figures, paid trips home twice yearly, and nice bonuses. Their only job is to care for the pets, including home cooking their meals, walks, training and any appointments. By all accounts, it's a pretty sweet gig. Sounds like paying a lot of money for your dogs to love someone else more than you. Most of the people that can afford this don't give a lol. They buy dogs for the status symbol, or maybe because they look cute, not to raise or care for them. The truest mark of high society is being so detached that you think you can substitute love for money. The wealthy version of a public storage unit, an exceptionally wealthy family I know, refers to a wing of the local art museum as their public storage unit. They funded the wing to store their huge collection of classic and modern art, since it was more practical than private storage. It included a climate-controlled, 24/7 secure location managed by professionals. Plus, the curators would handle the swapping out of pieces to slash from the museum and the home when they needed a different style or era to fit the mood of the next dinner or event at the house. Which was funny, because sometimes the swaps would introduce a dozen or so pieces not before displayed at the museum, essentially creating a new exhibit that the museum would package and promote. Behind the fuss, the family just wanted to create the right ambience for grandma's 80th birthday party. I agree with the other comments that this one has a nice practical upside for the family and the public. For whatever reason though, the amount of wealth represented by this arrangement seems truly staggering. By the way guys, if you are enjoying this video so far, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It will help us out quite a bit, and if you don't enjoy the videos in the future anymore, you can always unsubscribe. Let's get back to the video. A guy in my town bought 4 plots of construction places for houses across the street and turned them into garden solely so his view wouldn't be deteriorated. The plots were $500k each. A partner at my wife's firm bought his neighbor's house when they listed so he could knock it down and make a garden. Then did the same with the neighbor behind him and put in a tennis court, pool, and pool house which has an attached 2-car garage and like 3 bedrooms. And these were all $1 million homes. So now he owns 3 out of 4 houses at the end of his street, presumably biding his time for the last one. When they want to move, they have to hope somebody else wants to buy the nicest and biggest house on the street. That's not usually the case. Why spend $4 million on a house in a $1 million house neighborhood? $4 million house people want to live in $4 million neighborhoods with $4 million neighbors. They don't want to slum it. I used to work for an engineering firm, and we did the engineering, HVAC, plumbing, electrical, fire protection, for high-end residential in New York City. There was a client who owned a floor in an apartment building on Central Park West. The people below him moved out, so he bought that floor to host parties. He had a 6 inches thick sound and vibration dampening system installed on that level, so he wouldn't bother the people that lived below. The building was old and the existing elevator would not stop the additional 6-inch higher on that floor only, so he installed a new elevator in the building. He also paid for French plasterers to come and live in New York City while they do the ornate plaster crown molding in the apartment. Maybe more money than sense, but good on that man for thinking of his neighbors. Some people have so much that expression doesn't even apply. If your funds are basically limitless, then there are no dumb purchases. If replacing the elevator is a slight convenience, then why not do it? I mean, if you're at that level, so are your neighbors, which means that if your parties are banging their ceiling and they don't like it, they also have the resources to make that a you problem. So yes, being considerate does pay, especially when you have that much money. Food service. When I was young, my first serious girlfriend's family was super rich. Hundreds of millions rich. They had what I would learn was food service. This consisted of a woman who would show up in the morning at maybe 5:30 and stock the fridge and make sure the coffee was on the timer and there were fresh pastries, etc. At 7:30 the actual food service people would arrive with fresh food for the day and prep anything you wanted. If you wanted something special for dinner, say a lobster thermidor, you just told them by 3 and it would be ready whenever you wanted. This included any snack you might want. Did you like the cheeseburger and want a few for later? Done. Every day the fridge would be stocked and cleaned out. It was amazing. An excellent use of disposable income in my humble opinion. I'm a private chef and have friends who are private chefs. The amount of money poured into food service for wealthy people could fund a restaurant easily. No expense spared, carte blanche, no questions asked. Hard work, long hours, incredible leftovers. Easily. The food help was very well paid, plus the amount of food they took home was insane. I always imagined they never had to buy groceries. We always make sure to hook up the rest of the household staff. Holidays are insane. Cases of wine and alcohol given away, whole organic turkeys, wagyu prime roast, lobster, crab, balota di iberico, all of it had to go once the parties were over. This one is a bit dated. You'll see why. I know a lady that went to spend the night with a friend and was gifted an entire Encyclopedia Britannica set. That sounds weird in 2021, but this was the late 70s, and you couldn't just Google or Wikipedia things. Just owning an entire set of Encyclopedia Britannica was a sign of wealth. They were a very expensive and non-essential item to fill up a bookshelf and look rich. People bought these things on payment plans like a car. Turns out they had many sets stored somewhere in their house, just to hand out as very large and heavy gift to visitors. After all, how rich must you be if you can afford to hand out a sign of wealth like that just for visiting? It was a mega power move. In around 05 my grandfather bought a set of Encyclopedia Britannicas for each of his 11 children. Very pretty on a shelf. Rarely used anymore. Thanks Granddad. Buying a set of encyclopedias was the first time my parents ever accumulated debt. I thought my dad knew everything as a kid because he never said I don't know when we asked a question, but look it up. Then gestured to the encyclopedias. Took me years to figure out that he wasn't refusing to answer half the time, he just didn't know. That's still good that he suggested doing your own research using a verified source instead of taking his word. That would teach a kid how to find information, and that's an important skill that so many even today seem to lack, even when most things are a Google search away. Back before Cleveland Clinic built their hospital in Dubai, the Middle Eastern rich used to come here for organ transplants. They needed to stay for 6 to 8 weeks till they could go home to recover. My boss's husband worked in construction and got a job to modify a house for one of these guys. They picked out a house, offered the owners all money to get out in 48 hours. The crew came in and worked around the clock to modify the house. They flew in materials from all over the world. Marble, stonework, stained glass windows. Money was no object. Also some rich oil dude can live in it for a couple of months and never come back. They also had an entire floor of the Cleveland Clinic to themselves for surgery and recovery. My grandfather's brother's job won the plumbing contract for the renovation and unrenovation after the entourage left. He took one of the gold sinks home and installed it in his basement bathroom. My grandfather loved tall tales, so I thought he was lying about it my whole life. Then, after my grandfather died, we went to my great uncle's house and I saw it for myself. In the basement half bathroom of a 1970s ranch house. My uncle was a construction worker at a Saudi prince's house. The prince was only using it specifically while in Cleveland for heart surgery and aftercare. This was quite a few years ago, and I was much younger at the time, so I really don't remember much about what was being done to this house, unfortunately. But I remember my uncle was in awe talking about the extravagance and luxury. He couldn't believe all the things that were being done to this house to only be lived in for maybe a year or so. I wonder what ending up happening to the house. Seasonal furniture. Meaning their house is furnished multiple different ways, furniture included, and they pay someone to store it and swap it out a couple of times a year. How clean their must be if it gets swapped out every 3 months. Swoon. That and the addition of probably having dedicated cleaning staff to take care of everything. The degree to which you can be free to live your life so much better with staff taking care of the small things is unimaginably life and day. I've recently just got a cleaner once a week and I can't even deal. It's so much more mentally wonderful for me. Absolutely. A specific example that comes to mind, in addition to cleaners, is when actors need to lose weight/gain muscle. Technically speaking, their bodies are not better than anyone else's, but they have all the means and the resources to make the changes easier and more effectively than the average person. If you have enough money, you can hire a personal chef to prepare all your meals. In this specific case, it literally becomes their job to focus on their body so they can spend as much time working towards that goal as they want. The actor Rob McElhenney, Mac from It's Always Sunny, has a great quote about it. Look, it's not that hard. All you need to do is lift weights 6 days a week, stop drinking alcohol, don't eat anything after 7 p.m, don't eat any carbs or sugar at all, in fact just don't eat anything you like, get the personal trainer from Magic Mike, sleep 9 hours a night, run 3 miles a day, and have a studio pay for the whole thing over a 6 to 7 month span. Michael Bay on The Island commentary. He knows about a wealthy prince, who he won't name, who has his own 747 jet complete with a surgery unit on the top floor. Inside there at all times is a 24-year-old man with the same blood type whose family has been paid off so that when the prince's heart gives out, surgeons can perform a transplant from the younger man. I can credibly tell you that this is dead true, but I'm not gonna tell you the country where it's from. But I know people who've actually been on the plane, and I know people who've actually met the kid. Let me introduce you to my walking talking organ donor who lives in this plane. He doesn't say much because his family donated his organs for monetary gain while he was still alive. Hey mom, how was your day? And who is that? And what did they want? And what did you tell them? The waiter approached. Would you like to see the menu, he said. Or would you like to meet the dish of the day? Said Arthur. That's cool, said Zafford. We'll meet the meat. May I urge you to consider my liver? Asked the animal. It must be very rich and tender by now. I've been force feeding myself for months. The animal staggered to its feet. It gave a mellow gurgle. A very wise choice, sir, if I may say so. Very good, it said. I'll just nip off and shoot myself. He turned and gave a friendly wink to Arthur. Don't worry, sir, he said. I'll be very humane. I once worked at a 24/7 call center that was mostly for a bunch of area hospitals and large clinics, but there were some private doctors as well. There was this one account for a concierge doctor for the super rich. My supervisor told me that they paid a membership fee every month. I don't recall the exact figure, but it was in the multiples of thousands of dollars, and they got this doctor on call for them whenever, wherever 24/7. Someone once called with a hangnail and the doctor went and attended to it. How does the doctor ever take a vacation? It guy here, and while I've never done it, I've known people who have done the version of this. You are their personal tech guy for everything. Lot of perks as you get of free stuff, as whenever a family member buys something you get one as well, and learn it inside and out so you can fix this or set it up how they like. Pay is generally decent, and you can even get taken along on holidays and trips and things in case they need you. The downside is that you're either available when needed or you'll be replaced. Maybe there's some exceptions for this, but the ones I've known it's a case of living a fairly cushy and easy life, but you are on call 24/7, 365. Kids' Christmas gifts aren't working? Be there in 10. And so on. Not sure how this translates for a doctor, but these kinds of families are paying specifically, so they have access to you whenever they want. End of story. My boss, who's exorbitantly rich, tasks his employees to buy things for him, and recently asked the lab department to order a scale capable of measuring to the 0.001 of a gram. So I give him 3 options between $1,200 and $2,400 and he elected to go with the most costly version as it has a windscreen, and he wants it rushed and received as soon as possible. This scale is built when ordered, so we negotiate a fee of $800 to jump the line and have it delivered by our meeting in 3 days. Turns out his at-home scale that he uses to meal prep has gone out, and instead of buying batteries to replace, he decided to rush order a $2,400 scale that doesn't operate on batteries, so he can meal prep for next week. That's a good excuse for a scale, which I'm assuming this is. Oh no officer, I just have this 0.1 mg scientific scale for meal prepping. Meal prep with an analytical scale. I don't know how long that would take if you're using it to maximum precision. And I thought I was quirky measuring my loose leaf tea with an old horse 310 dialogram 0.01 G scale. My in-laws have a rich friend who wrote a movie glamorizing her own life, produced and starred in said movie, got a famous retired actor to play her father, got her son's model girlfriend to play her younger self, and gave us all the DVD and a collector's book for the holidays. It was the most cringe movie we've ever watched. Edit. I forgot to mention that she also tracked down some singer she used to be a fan of back when she was a kid. She got this poor woman, now old and retired, to cameo in her movie, where she had to listen to our rich friend sing one of her old songs and tell her how talented she is and how she totally could have had a singing career if she hadn't become a rich businesswoman instead. The former singer was so not into it and was clearly doing it for a paycheck. I'm from Ireland, so I'm gonna say horses. Rich people here love their high standard, thoroughbred horses. If you can afford race winning stallion, you're doing well in life. Rich people are seriously obsessed with horse and who their mares. In Ireland, if you own multiple horses, you are either very wealthy or very poor. Being from an extremely poor town, I can honestly say this is true, haha. I'm from a rough part of Dublin, and keeping horses and rearing them was a big thing here. Definitely not thoroughbreds though, haha. Haha. I visited Dublin once and went on a run. Ended up running by an empty lot with 2 rough looking dudes contemplating a burnt out motorcycle and thought, found a bad neighborhood. Then I looked across the street and there was a fenced in field with a horse. Had no idea what to think. Urban horses are not a thing where I live. Lol, can confirm, based on the rich people I know / have met. I don't think all of them like horses, though. And it bugs me that people think horses are only a rich people thing. You don't have to own your own stables to ride a horse. Especially if you have no fixed abode. Yeah, my friend has a horse which she stables outside her city. So it's definitely not just a rich thing to own a horse. But rich people love horse breeding. I find it funny how obsessed they are with horse and how much they are willing to pay for it. It's less about caring for animals and more like they see $$ on horses' heads. Horses are like stocks to them. Honestly. Privacy. I'm good friends with a couple whose family is super rich. They have a beautiful estate up in New England that I have visited several times. The main house is located in a 100-acre plot with multiple outbuildings and a separate guest house. When I first started visiting, the family next door was friends with them and would come over and hang out at the lake with us. Their house was also super nice and they were wealthy, but not quite as wealthy as my friend's family. A few years ago the family next door decided to sell their house. My friend's father-in-law decided to purchase it as they didn't want some other family they didn't know moving in. That was the reason, I was told. There may have been other reasons as well. This other house was $2 million and, like I said, was gorgeous. It now sits mostly empty 90% of the year and isn't used by anyone unless guests, like me, come to visit. Don't get me wrong. I love my friends and their family has always been incredibly nice and generous to me, but the second house seems rather extravagant. Edit, a word. My brother does security for a high-end Middle Eastern man in Washington, D.C. He not only bought the $30 million mansion he lives in but all 5 mansions surrounding it for security and privacy. There is rich, and then there is Middle Eastern oil rich. One of the investors of the previous company I used to work at was a billionaire. I didn't spend too much time with him, but he was always around during company parties and such, as were most of our early investors. The most woe moment was when he talked about his house in Telluride, Colorado. Nope, he's not a skier. Nope, he's not someone who likes the mountains. Nope, it's not some real estate that he's hoping earns money. He bought it because he liked the idea of having a mountain/ski retreat available to him at any time. He's owned it 10 years, and aside from visiting it when he first bought it, he's never stepped foot in it. This guy was too much of a big shot to rent a vacation house. He only wanted to stay in ones he owned, even if he never visits it. His kids use it though for winter sports, so it's not completely empty all year. I used to live in a ski resort town. It was an out-of-the-way secret for the millionaires. The neighborhood had 800 properties and 3/4s were just like you said. Empty for 50 out of 52 weeks a year. Grass dead, burst frozen pipes, theft rings spending 2 weeks sitting every house in a row because no one knew for weeks. I live a little over an hour outside of Telluride. Loads of celebs owned property there. Worked for a company that did the fireplaces for a celeb home there. Over $400,000 in chimney pipe alone, at cost. Wild. My uncle is a doctor. He has been the lead board member for the biggest hospital, and a world famous one, in my area for the last 4/5 years. Dude is loaded. So much so that I learned he has a personal tram, think ski lift, to his house. WTF. Never knew those were a thing. I know a few people whose parents had those. It's basically a necessity for where the houses were located. My wife's aunt and uncle have/had one, and it needs to basically be replaced, which is going to cost them well over $100K. Their property is basically a little portion up top with a garage to park cars and then down basically a giant cliff to their house, which is right down by the water. Since their tram has been down, they basically have to walk up and down a path with a bunch of switchbacks just to get to and from their house. They are well off, but not rich, hence why the tram hasn't been fixed yet. Seems like a good way to die in an unfortunate cable car accident. And then when people read the news story they will be like, man, they were rich. My parents had one that went from their house to their boat dock. There were stairs, but they were extremely steep and a lot of them. Like you run up and down them 5 times and you are done with a full cardio workout. Anyway, I found out that every single year a mechanic from the company that makes them comes out to service them and inspect them. Apparently it was a requirement from the company that made them to have them inspected every year for liability purposes, and you couldn't opt out of it. You had to pay them every year. My cousin's mansion has heated floors in the garage. He said it sounds really stupid, but when the weather is freezing, he just turns on the floor heat a few minutes before he's ready to leave, and it warms up his car, so he doesn't have to. Like, I don't personally need that in my life, but if I had it, I would use it. Edit. Okay, I get it. They are not just for rich people. I'm from an area where it doesn't usually get cold enough for heated floors to be a practical/necessary expense, so I guess that's why I considered it a luxury. There's an area not far from where I'm that's built on a mini mountain. It's not technically a mountain, but it's very steep and gets snowy. Steep roads, steep driveways. People there have heated driveways, so they don't have to shovel it or have it freeze over. Many of them just leave it on when it gets close to zero because they don't want to wait if they want to go somewhere outside of their regular commuting time. And it's not like they're 3-5 meters parking driveways, they're proper 20-50 meters. I don't want poor people to be able to see my house from the road gated driveways. If you've never had to shovel a steep driveway, it sounds stupid. But if you've slipped on a patch of ice while shoveling and slid 4 feet on your face, or been unable to get up your driveway when you've been gone for a few hours and it's been snowing, it's a more reasonable expense, haha. This is the end of the video. Thank you guys for staying with me till the end. If you enjoyed watching this, you might as well watch these too.